Almost everyone thought Carolina wasn't going to make March Madness last year, but they did, and baby, it was sweet.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank you so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Tuesday going the right way. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Special shout out to all the everydayers here with us on the show, all the great members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders. Reminder, links for all of that are in the show notes. The new academic year starts off this week. There's a women's soccer match on Thursday. If you're not in the Discord, if you're not joining me in the insiders program, now's the time. Join us. We'd love to have you. All right, coming up on the show today, and really the whole first half of this week, it's one of my favorite things we've done the last several off seasons. This is either the third or fourth annual version of this, is the top 10 most impactful UNC moments or athletic things of the 2024-25 academic year. So we're breaking it up in the first three shows of this week. Yesterday, we hit numbers 10 through 7. It included the lane violation, field hockey's dominant season that fell just short, Ethan Strand and everything he's put together, and the best women's college basketball season under Courtney Banghart. So if you want to check all that out, you can find it just up here. I'll link it in the corner on YouTube for those of you watching. If you're listening, you can go back and find it at the show just before this in the podcast feed. So today we will hit numbers 6 through 4, and then ahead tomorrow to wrap it all up, we will do 3 through 1. And just to give you the full scope of what we're talking about and what we're looking at here, when we talk Carolina athletics, making a top 10 list is not easy because there are so many things that are happening, right? This is the ultimate hashtag Project 28 moment as we talk about and celebrate all 28 varsity athletic sports at Carolina because they are all doing great things. To that point, literally on all three shows of this series, we will talk about at least one national champion, individual or team. The Carolina athletics department as a whole finished 4th last year in the Learfield standings behind only Texas, USC, and Stanford. The women's athletics won the Capital One Cup for 2024-25 for the best women's athletics program in all of Division I. I mean, it's crazy the stuff that Carolina is always doing year after year after year. 24-25 was no stranger to that. So let's get right back into it. Number 6 on our list. The men's basketball team, very controversially, is selected as the last team in the NCAA tournament. Oh, by the way, with Bubba Cunningham as the selection committee chair. So let's talk about it. It was kind of funny. Let me just take us first to the moment of it. You may or may not know or remember, in addition to hosting this show, I also have the honor of co-hosting Locked On College Basketball, just Locked On's national college basketball show. We'd love for you to hang out with us there too. But as part of that last year, we had partnered with Amazon and we were filming studio shows each weekend of March Madness down in Dallas. And so all of us that are part of the show were sitting in the green room watching the selection show together. We're watching the last couple games that the AAC, the Big Ten, the SEC that all wrap up just a little bit before the selection show. And the selection show starts. It's a very serious moment. And we're all in there getting notes ready, taking things together. And literally the first bracket they put up is the Auburn is the number 1 overall seed in the nation. They run through the top half of that bracket and then they get to the bottom half, which starts with Ole Miss, the number 6 seed. And then immediately right pops up number 11, San Diego State versus North Carolina in Dayton. And I let out this big whoop. You know, here I am trying to be all professional, but I'm not expecting Carolina to show up. I didn't think they're going to make it. And if they did, you expect it to be like later in the show, even though it could be any time, right? But you're just like, if their name gets called, it'll be later. But legitimately, I did not think they would. I thought they were deserving of it, to be frank with you, but I didn't think the selection committee would pull the trigger on it. I thought there were other teams that they were favoring above them. And so North Carolina is called, and I just, yeah. And I went running through the halls of the news studio, and I was recording myself. I think I even put it up on on TikTok and some other places. You can go back and find it. But it was just one of these hilarious moments because it was so unexpected. Anyway, that image will always be burned in my brain because so often Selection Sunday is a formality for Carolina. And I know the past 5-6 years haven't necessarily been because of the last couple of years of Coach Williams' tenure. It was like, and the 23 season when Carolina didn't make it, all of that. And so even 22, we knew they were going to make it in, but that it was going to be close, and they were an 8 or a 9 seed. And so there's all of that. But still, it's this moment we don't often get to experience as Carolina fans, which came out of me in this moment when I'm being a professional. But anyway, that's the moment that sticks. Carolina, resume-wise, heading into Selection Sunday, they were 22-13 overall, 13-7 in a pretty weak ACC, if we're being honest. But there were some good numbers. They were 36th in the net. They were 8-0 in quad 2 games, but we all know the big but they've only got one quad 1 win. Well, we all know it's because of how strong their strength of schedule was in non-conference play, and that was part of what helped out a lot. So they were 1-12 in quad 1 games, and the other thing that hurt them was that home loss to Stanford, which was a quad 3 loss. So they were 7-1 in quad 3. Those two things stuck out like sore thumbs, the one quad 1 win and having a quad 3 loss. And if you went to Bracket Matrix, which is an aggregator that brings together all the various bracketologists, they, as of Selection Sunday, were looking at 250 different brackets. Carolina only showed up on 57 of those, so like a fifth, basically. No one's expecting them to get in. West Virginia or Indiana looked like they were clearly going to be the one. Carolina, when the seed list came out, they were 46th overall on the seed list and literally the last team to make the field. In fact, during the selection show, they always interview the selection committee chair, who was Bubba. Bubba can't talk about Carolina because he literally has to leave the room when they talk about Carolina. So they have the vice chair of the committee talk about Carolina, and he laid out, hey, look, here's what it came down to. Carolina was basically, their fate was dependent on the outcome of the AAC championship game. Had UAB beaten Memphis, UAB's in as an auto qualifier, and Memphis would have gotten an at-large and Carolina would have been out. Since Memphis won, UAB was just out and Carolina got that last spot. That's how close it was. And so there was all of this stuff. And a lot of people cried foul because Bubba was the chair of the selection committee. And I hear it, I get it. And I know that even with rules and regulations surrounding the bracketing process, I see how bias could slide in. But ultimately, I think Carolina had the things that they needed to, especially with the new metrics that were on the team sheets, including Carolina being 5th in non-conference strength of schedule and other things like that, wins above bubble, where Carolina was in a good shape. Another thing that helped was the lack of bid thieves. None. And so that helped Carolina get over the hump there. Ultimately, it was the kind of thing where Carolina shouldn't have ever put themselves in that position, right? Let's be honest. There were so many of those games where they got so far down, had to come back and fell just shy. Had they not done any of that, they're in and you don't worry about it, right? It would have been fine. But Carolina does get in, controversially, questionably, whatever you want to say. But then they showed well for themselves. I mean, they absolutely trounced San Diego State in Dayton, 95-68. And it was like, oh, has this Carolina team that we saw down the stretch against, albeit a weaker schedule, really found something here? because there was all this talk about that. They won't do San Diego State. Magoon Guath is back and yada, yada, yada. Well, Carolina did work. The problem was, I started getting happy and I was like, man, they're going to beat Ole Miss and they're going to keep rocking. It's going to be great. Well, Ole Miss beats Carolina 71-64. And it was another one of those crazy close, like Carolina almost comes back from a massive deficit and falls just shy. Just 4 minutes and 10 seconds into this game, Carolina was down double digits, 14-4. The deficit grew to as many as 19 in the first half. It was 18 at the half, 44-26 in favor of the Rebels. They grew it out to 22 points with 17:45 to go. Carolina, again, we just talked about that Duke comeback on the last episode. Carolina got it all the way down to 2 points with 69 seconds left, 1:09 to go. But Carolina never scored again. It was 64-66 at that point. Final was 71-64. They just ran out of gas. And that final game against Ole Miss and Chris Beard was a microcosm of everything that happened last season. And quite frankly, was the perfect way to bow out of the tournament that many thought they should never have been in the first place. But that's number 6 on our countdown. Oh, let's turn our attention then to baseball, who made the postseason with no questions and, in fact, were one of the top 8 national seeds. And things seem to be lining up perfectly for a second straight trip to Omaha. But somehow, that I'm still scratching my head on, it all fell just shy. We'll talk about that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, y'all, we've all been there. You're waiting in a digital line to get tickets to a concert or a show, and there's the stress of like, oh man, am I going to get in line quick enough? Will the robot recognize me? What's going to happen? And it's okay, 3, 2, 1, refresh, get in line, hurry, quick. And you're waiting, and it's going to be 5 more minutes. And for you, there's the countdown, right? But something happens, your internet gives out, and it kicks you out of line. It's so stressful, you guys, and it shouldn't be that way. Getting concert tickets and show tickets should be fun and about making memories and not dealing with all of that stress. And that, you all, is where Game Time comes in. They make getting concert and show tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop the closer you get to showtime. They can go down by as much as 60%, giving you a killer last-minute deal. Are you worried about what might happen, though? Like, what if I book these tickets and my plans change? Don't be worried. The Game Time Guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and so much more. Recently, my family bought tickets through Game Time to go see Dude Perfect. It was awesome. It was great. It was the first time I had used Game Time, so I didn't know, will it work? Will it be a scam? What's going to happen? Y'all, it was smooth sailing. It was perfect. It was just like buying tickets direct from any other, primary site. It was perfect. Game Time is great, and I will go back again and again and again. So join me and my family and take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and go ahead and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase, which we did for those Dude Perfect tickets. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Next up in our countdown, it's number 5. The Diamond Heels nearly get back to Omaha back-to-back seasons. 2024 was the first College World Series of the Steve Forbes era. Carolina kind of seemingly ahead of schedule, even though they had some great stuff, but the pitching just wasn't there. The starting pitching had injuries throughout the season. But you had Vance Honeycutt and Parks Harbor and Gavin Gallagher and all these guys, and it came together, and it was great. And then the 25 season happened. It was like, oh man, Carolina lost a lot, but they have reloaded, and this could be a team that goes to Omaha back-to-back seasons for the first time since Carolina. Remember, they went 4 in a row from 06 to 09, which, I mean, it was beautiful. It was great. So, hot start to this season. Carolina got off to literally an undefeated start, 13-0. And I was, at that point, I was like, y'all go ahead, book your Omaha tickets now. Get in on this thing. This team is going again. But then they struggled out of the gate in ACC play. Carolina hosted Stanford, who ended up not being great, and they lost that series. Their second ACC series was at Louisville, and they lost that one too. It was like, okay, either I have severely misinterpreted how good this team is, or something happened and they have to refine it themselves. Thankfully, it was the latter. It was just they had to refine who they were, because after those two series losses, Carolina righted the ship and didn't lose another AC series the whole rest of the season. And the only reason I'm not saying they won the final 8, you played 10 total ACC series, is because there was that series against NC State where they split the first 2 games and then the third game got canceled because of weather. So Carolina won 7 out of their last 8 series and tied the other with NC State. And that included perhaps maybe the 2 most impressive series to me were sweeping Wake and then going down to Tallahassee and winning 2 out of 3 down there. And it was the first 2 of that series. So Sunday was just cherry on the cake, ice cream, cherry on top. There you go. But Carolina didn't win that one. Whatever. They had already won the series. And that was where it was like, I honestly think even before the ACC tournament, that was where they locked in being a national seed. And so really, really overcame those early ACC struggles to really show who they were. And Carolina ended up winning the ACC tournament for the second time in the Scott Forbes era. They won it back in 2022 as well. Carolina went on to win the regional. They had to go all the way to that second game against Oklahoma. And that was on a Monday. I had just gone to Cancun with my family, and I'm trying to keep up from Mexico, and is like, can we get to the resort, please, so I can refresh what's happening here. And then comes the super regional. Arizona comes over. They had knocked off Oregon. It was the Eugene regional, and Arizona's coming in. It's like, all right, Arizona's a good team. They wouldn't be one of the final 16 teams in the nation if they weren't. But Carolina's got the starting pitching. The bullpen is young. It's somewhat depleted, but the bats are there, and the defense is there. Things should be great. And game 1 of the super regional was that. It was the day I was actually coming home from that same Cancun trip. Carolina, what adjective do you even use for that game? Walloped? I don't even know, because it was such a beatdown. It was 18-2 in game 1 of the super regional. And at that point, you thought it, I thought it, this is over. It's done with. Send them home. Carolina's going to Omaha back-to-back years. Thought it at the beginning of the season. Now I'm feeling very, like baseball postseason is so hard to navigate your way through. But Carolina is 1 win away from Omaha, and they just need one of the next 2 games, and they've just walloped their opponent 18-2. And you know what? I think I must have got too high and mighty, because Carolina ended up losing those final 2 games, 8-10 game 2 on Saturday and 3-4 game 3 on Sunday. And it was disappointing because they had leads late in both of those games. That game 2 was a back and forth affair, but Carolina took an 8-6 lead in the top of the 7th. That was where they were a visitor, even though they're at home. But then they surrendered 4 runs in the bottom of the 7th and couldn't do anything else in that game. Game 3, y'all, Ryan Lynch was brilliant on the mound for the Tar Heels. Carolina has a 3-1 lead. Who hit that home run? It's blanking on me right now, but Carolina got a 3-run bomb in the 3rd inning and led 3-1, third all the way through the 8th inning. And Ryan Lynch was cruising. He was so efficient, doing a great job. The longest outing of his career to that point. But what it all came down to for me was 2 teams in the exact same situation handling it completely different. And that was the bottom of the 6th and the top of the 8th. Bottom of the 6th, Carolina is trying to add on. They get a error at shortstop. Stokely goes to 3rd. Madera winds up at 1st after that, 1 out. And then there was all this like, whoo, Arizona has made this mistake. Carolina's got to take advantage of it. But then Bass hits into a 6-4-3 inning-ending double play. It's like, all right, fine. Keep holding on defensively. Top of the 8th, same thing. Carolina gets into a similar situation where Madera makes a gaffe that allows Arizona some life. A single to start the inning, and then the ball that should have been a 4-6-3 double play, 2 down, nobody on base, and Ryan Lynch is still cruising, in the bottom of the 8th inning, just 4 outs left to get. But Madera doesn't get that. So it's 2 on. And then Lynch gets pulled right after that, which there's a lot of conversation about that. Should he have just stayed in? And then Carolina ends up surrendering 3 runs in that inning and can't do anything else the rest of the way. And somehow Arizona is now the team on their way to Omaha. It was shocking, truly shocking. So I am still befuddled how that happened, but it did. That's sports. That's athletics, man. That's what we live through. But clearly one of the most impactful, top 10 impactful moments of Carolina's athletic season. And there's another super fun team upcoming this season. Again, going to have to reload. Lost a lot, both on the hill and at the other fielding positions, but there's a lot of hope, and we will see how things go. Now, field hockey had a dominant season, couldn't quite finish it off. Women's lacrosse, no such problem. We'll unpack their dominant season coming up to wrap the show with number 4 in just a second. We move on to number 4 in our countdown of the top 10 most impactful UNC athletics moments of 24-25. I promised you a national champion on every single episode. We certainly didn't get it with the men's basketball team that started this one. Unfortunately, the men's baseball team couldn't pull it off, so that means it's got to be whoever we're about to talk about. And yeah, it's the women's lacrosse team. On the last show, we talked about the field hockey team and how they had a dominant, undefeated run all the way to the Final Four and unfortunately lost there. The women's lacrosse team finished that job despite looking like they actually might suffer a similar fate to the field hockey team. Let me remind you of that, and then we'll go back and unpack this whole thing. In the Final Four, Carolina was down 2-4 to Florida heading into the second quarter, and it's like, oh no, not field hockey all over again. This cannot be happening. But then, for the final 3 quarters, Carolina outscored the Gators 18-0. Yes, that's right. An 18-0 run over the final 3 quarters to win 20-4. And that's when you knew, oh, this is about to happen. And it did. There you go. Women's lacrosse is your undefeated national champions. Great stuff for the ladies. Let's run back through the numbers. You thought the field hockey numbers were crazy? Well, let me give you the women's lacrosse numbers. It's maybe even more so. 22-0 on the season, 9-0 in ACC play. In those 22 games, this is part of why it's so insane to me. Of the 22 games they played, 15 of them were against ranked teams. And it wasn't just like they played teams 20-25 a bunch. They played teams ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 14, 14, 16, 18, 20. So 15 ranked teams, all of whom were top 20. That means that 68% of all matches the women's lacrosse played were against a top 20 team. Let's take it further than that. Carolina played 10 games against a top 10 ranked team, which were 45% of their 22 games were against a top 10 team. That is absurd. And it's not just like, oh, they managed it pretty well. They went 7-3. They were undefeated. You guys, this is insanity. The combined score in all 22 of their matches was 384-151. More than doubling up their opponents, not even close. We talked average score with field hockey. The average score here was 17.5 goals to 6.9 goals. So basically 17.5 to 7 was the average score. In the 22 matches they played, their opponent made it to double figure scoring just 4 times and never more than 12. Carolina, on the other hand, scored in double figures every game. All 22, they hit at least 10, and they made 20 or more goals 7 times. It was just an absolutely crazily dominant performance. And it was so cool because the rankings, they started number 4. They moved slowly up until they were number 1. but it was so cool because of the storyline of the three Humphrey sisters all playing together, Ashley, Chloe, and Nicole. Poor Nicole, Nicole had some injuries and so couldn't play a ton. But Chloe, this dominant freshman, Chloe and Ashley were not only teammates, but sisters who were two of the 5 finalists for the Tewarton Award, which is the award for the best women's lacrosse player in the nation. So there were 5 finalists, 2 of them from North Carolina, 2 of them from the same family. That's insanity. And it's Chloe, the freshman, who wins, and she's the first Tar Heel to ever do so. On the season, Chloe, 90 goals, 28 assists, 118 total points. She was 3rd nationally in goals, one of just 3 players in the nation to get at least 90. She was 7th in goals per game. So, a little bit there because of playing more games, But Ashley, 31 goals, 90 assists, 121 total points. Ashley led the nation with those 90 assists, but the margin was insane. The player that was second in assists this season had 77. Just killed her. Dominated the nation in that. And this one is not just because Ashley played more games. She also led the nation in assists per game. In fact, she was the only player in the nation to have more than 4 assists a game at 4.09. Again, when I say how dominant she was and they were, it was truly, truly dominant. And I also didn't look up points. Where did they both rank in that? Yeah, 4th and 5th in total points on the season. Let me look at points per game. Ashley was 9th, Chloe 12th. Just, again, the numbers are staggering with what these ladies did. So, Carolina now has 4 all-time national championships in women's lacrosse. That's the 3rd most in the nation, behind only Maryland and Northwestern. And all 4 of those have come since 2013, which ties Maryland for the most in that span. And similar to field hockey, you want to talk about longevity. The Tar Heels have made at least the Elite 8 in 19 of the last 20 seasons, going all the way back to 2005. And they've also made at least the Elite 8 in 24 of the last 28 seasons, dating back to 1997. When we talk about dominant athletics programs, there you go. Carolina field hockey, Carolina women's lacrosse, and we haven't even discussed the soccer team yet. I mean, it's just Project 28 is everywhere, and I love it, and I love it, and I love it. And I hope you do too, man. And you just see how great Carolina athletics is across the board. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up number 6 through 4 in our top 10 most impactful UNC athletics moments list of 24-25. Tomorrow's show on Wednesday, we're going to wrap it up with 3 through 1, a couple of honorable mentions. Again, a reminder, go back and listen to 10 through 7 on yesterday's show. Stay tuned for later in the week. We will have our next roster preview. We're going to be doing James Brown. Josh Marlowe from Four Corners podcast, Heel Tough Blog, is going to be joining me for that. And then Coach Rob will be with me on Friday. So it's a great week, a fun week. Also, I forgot to say this on the first one. I'd love to know from you, what would make your top 10 list? Any that you agree or disagree with me on the top 10 most impactful moments from Carolina athletics last year. All right, guys, you know the deal. If you haven't subscribed to the show on video and audio, do that right now so you don't miss a second. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord or Insiders program, find us there. The links are in the show notes. We'd love to see you. Come join us. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow to wrap up this countdown, but until then,